I'm going to show you how to replace your speed sensor in your Nissan Altima. It's located under the hood, under the battery. To remove your battery from the vehicle, you're going to take a 10mm wrench and take off the negative terminal first. Set it aside. And you're going to go to your positive. These are usually not broken off, but if they are, you can always tape it. Now you're going to remove the positive. Sometimes they can be stuck. Put that off to the side, just out of the way is good. And then you have this bracket that holds the battery down, so when you're driving, the battery doesn't fly around all over the place. That would be unsafe. You're going to need a 10mm socket. And you're going to start loosening down these. Sometimes you have a rod down here that spins if it's not snug, so you want to make sure that doesn't spin. And then I would just, towards the end, use your finger so you don't lose the nut. And you got to take the nut all the way off. Set your nut aside. You have one on the other side, same thing. Set that aside. And then you have this little bracket that holds it all in. Also 10mm. Okay, so now what I typically do is take that out completely. Just get it out of the way, because batteries are not light. And then you're going to take the battery out. So after you get the battery out, you are going to take out this plastic tray. So I'm going to start by taking out these bolts. They are 13mm. Now I'm going to loosen this 10mm bolt where the wiring harness is attached to. That should give us enough wiggle room to slide the battery holder out. Now we're going to take out these bolts and unclip the airbox and take that just right out of the way. All right, so now that you've undone all those bolts, it does give you enough room to move things around so that you can squeeze past all of it and get that one bolt out for the speed sensor. So in order to keep it out of my way, I like to use a bungee cord. Just be gentle with the harness. You don't want to break any wires. Doesn't need a whole lot of tension, just enough to move it out of the way. So now I have a clear shot at my bolt. Now you want to unclip the wire by pushing down on the tab and pulling. Put that out of the way. You're going to want to get this wiring harness out of the way so you can get to that clear shot of the bolt. So you just want to use a trim tool and pry it out. And just push it off to the side. Okay, you're going to get your 10mm wrench and you're going to break free the bolt using the closed end. And once it's free, you want to turn your wrench around and use the open end. The reason for that is because your wrench may get stuck between the starter and the bolt if you use the closed end all the way. After you break it loose, usually you can just use your fingers to loosen it the rest of the way. If not, do a couple more turns with the wrench and then use your fingers to loosen it the rest of the way. So now we're going to take the bolt out. And I like to twist the sensor. There's an O-ring in there that you kind of need to crack loose a little bit if it's been in there for a while. So as you can see, I spun it. And then you're going to use a flathead screwdriver. And pull, and it should come out. And there it is. All right, so you're going to want to line up your speed sensor and place it in, making sure that the bolt hole is facing in the same direction. You are going to want to put some silicone paste on your O-ring so that it easily seats into the hole. Now you're going to place your 10mm bolt. And you're almost snug. You want to use the closed side of the wrench. And you're just going to snug it down. All right, now that you've made sure the sensor is flush with the transmission and you've tightened down that bolt, you're going to find your connector and you're going to slide it on, and when you hear the click, it's connected. All right, so now you're ready to put that back in. Just press it in. All right, so now we can take our bungee cord off. We are going to put our bolts back into our battery holder. Make sure all your holes are lined up, including your harness. Put them in finger tight. And your two over here. This one is a 10mm and these are 13mm. All right, so now we're going to put our tray back in there. So here we are, putting our airbox back on. Sometimes the clips come out of these. You can just slide it back in. If you feel like they're frozen, you can add a little penetrating oil. Slide it in. Now we can put our airbox back together over here by lifting it up. Make sure that you line up the box. It can be a little tricky. And snap it into place. Now we're going to put a battery back in. Just make sure you get by the terminals. There's a little plastic case in there that it wants to sit in. Okay. And take your bracket that you took out. Make sure these are hooked in. Line up your studs going through. You want to make sure they're in before you start putting any bolts in on both sides. Otherwise, you're going to have to do it twice. Start your nuts hand by hand, so you don't cross-thread anything. Put your bolts back in. You can usually see where it lived. I would usually just put it back where it lived, by the dents in the bracket or the markings. Just that tightening down. 10mm socket. I wouldn't snug it up all the way just yet. Make sure you get them all pretty snug a tiny bit, and then you're going to snug them down. If that starts to wiggle, you got to hold it with your finger while you're doing it. And then you want to tighten this. Now you can tighten them all down. Make sure the battery doesn't move around. You're going to connect your positive. Make sure your negative is not attached or touching when you do that, otherwise you'll see some sparks, and that's never fun. Push down, keep it kind of straight, and tighten it back up. Check it and make sure it doesn't move. Then you can go to your negative, push it all the way down, and you're going to tighten that side up. Check it, make sure it doesn't move. Then You're going to put this back the best you can. And then I typically would put a piece of tape to hold that together because that keeps the weather out. Now that the car is all back together, you can take a deep breath because this job is done.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.